The world's most popular sport, football, or as it's called in the United States, soccer, has struggled to gain momentum in the country. The recent Copa America disaster on home soil has created a crisis within the United States Soccer Federation. What was once called the Golden Generation, following a promising 2022 World Cup run, is now a team being viewed as a disappointment, a team that is now without a leader as well. So what led to this? And what is the solution or solutions to stop the failures?
If this is as good as it gets, it's not good enough.
First, a history lesson. It's important to understand that although American and European sports developed around the same time, the places where they developed were very different. European soccer clubs were typically founded in towns and factories, while American football developed in universities. Interestingly, that has resulted in college sports being older and originally more popular than later developed leagues like the NFL in 1920 or the NBA in 1946 in the United States. The academies for the NFL and NBA would be the colleges, which is the reason for the draft, something very unusual compared to European sports. Baseball is older than other American sports, and because of that, has the minor league system, which is more similar to European-style academies. While American football gained popular in the late 1800s and early 1900s, soccer would remain unpopular among universities. One thing that did help the game's popularity was the millions of European immigrants, over 20 million of them, which arrived in the country from 1830 to 1930, bringing their love of the game with them. Some of these immigrants would help the US in their first World Cup in 1930, which included a win against Belgium before losing to Argentina in the semi-final. Not bad. In fact, the United States would end up finishing third place in the tournament, the best to this day of any non-European or South American team. Although Morocco did come very close in 2022 to tying. However, following this success is the first example of a commonly encountered problem throughout the history of the sport in the United States. The failure to establish a permanent professional league left many players unable to continue playing, especially with universities being dominated by American football. However, there were attempts to do this, in the 1920s specifically. Two competing leagues could not settle their disagreements in something today known as the soccer war, until it was too late. Explained in the following video.
American soccer always had a weird structure with a league, the ASL or American Soccer League, and a governing association, the USFA or United States Football Association. The USFA was American soccer's liaison to FIFA and the international community.
After 1930, the national team would be almost irrelevant until about 1990. In that almost 60 years, American football took over as the most dominant sport both at the college and professional level, with basketball and baseball following behind. While soccer developed in Europe and South America, and the difference in talent and coaching became greater and greater between the rest of the world and the US. There was one positive though. In the 1950 World Cup, when the United States pulled off one of the greatest upsets in the history of soccer, when they beat England 1-0. The English team was made up of professionals, and the American team, well, wasn't. But this upset victory did little to inspire American interest in the sport. In the 70s, the North American Soccer League hoped to change the fate of soccer in America, with legends like Pelé playing in New York in front of massive crowds. However, when those star players left, the league failed to survive. But the same universities that rejected the sport earlier on would end up giving new life to the game in the US. Change was needed, and a desperate attempt to host the 1986 World Cup was what they hoped could save the sport in the country. The US bid to host the 1986 World Cup would fail, technically, because they would be the host for 1994. A bunch of college kids would represent the United States in 1990, and they actually did a good job, kind of. Even though they didn't win a game, they were able to play a close game with Italy, only losing 1-0. And in 1994, things looked to be headed in the right direction. And things were. In 1994, the US advanced into the knockout stages, after beating Colombia in an upset. Also, in order to host the 1994 World Cup, FIFA wanted the United States to develop a professional soccer league. So they did. Major League Soccer has been able to be not only a professional league, but a permanent one. And while the league struggled tremendously at first, almost suffering the same fate as the North American Soccer League, it was saved by investment from ownership into the league, and a move away from American rules.
35 yards away from victory. The Reds are second touch, chips it, and
to more traditional rules, while still maintaining a very American franchise model used in other American sports leagues. However, while players like Beckham and Messi have helped inspire a new generation of players, the US has still failed to develop talent from the United States itself. This is the product of several factors, maybe the biggest being the lack of media coverage. As mentioned before in this video, American football dominates media coverage, and so many of America's young athletes may start playing soccer and end up playing American football or basketball because they lose interest. During the fall, the NFL has games every Sunday, and Thursday and Monday night games as well. College has games every Saturday, and high school every Friday. There's always a game on, or someone talking about the game. Compare this to soccer, where it can be difficult for Americans to watch games, due to time differences, or games being unavailable. Universities also create a very difficult choice for many athletes. Either become a professional out of high school, or go to a university for several years. MLS doesn't help much either. It's developed a reputation as a league you end your career with, not start one. And because of this, many Americans don't take the league seriously and don't want to watch it, which only leads to more young athletes in the US losing interest in the game. And because the league only has 30 teams, it creates a situation where many players are unable to continue playing because of the limited number of franchises, and most would rather go to college and play in a smaller league. So with all these factors, it became possible for the world's third largest country and the world's richest country, which is no stranger to sports and sports culture, to fail to get out of its group of the 2024 Copa America at home, which leads us into today, where Greg Berhalter was recently fired following the loss to Uruguay and Kansas City. Berhalter was hired after another massive failure for the United States men's national team.
Well, you and I have talked about this off camera. Well, guess what? I see that little red light. It's on, and I'm going to bring it up right now.
Okay.
The glove should have been off years ago. We should have been having real criticism. And the discussion after Brazil, Max, was can we beat the Colombias and the Belgiums and the Argentinas of the world? You kidding me? We can't beat Trinidad on a field that's too wet and too heavy? What are we doing? What are we doing?
When they failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup after they lost to Trinidad and Tobago. The former head coach of the Columbus Crew MLS team had a promising start, which saw the US transition to a younger team, a team which also reached the knockout stages in Qatar. However, that kind of progress failed to continue. After being removed as head coach, just to be brought back again, Berhalter's team would lose against Panama, partially because of a red card which put them at a disadvantage for much of the game, and then was unable to defeat Uruguay to advance. The United States Soccer Federation decided that the team had not made enough progress, especially with the 2026 World Cup quickly approaching. The team now has no obvious replacement for Berhalter, and many questions about the roster itself remain. Is the team good enough to impress people in 2026? Can the team improve? Or was Qatar the best we will see from this group? If they made it to the knockout stages of the Copa America, how different would things be? Right now the focus is the next head coach. But overall, the US needs to change a lot about soccer if it ever wants to be among the best. Everything from how it's treated by the media to how they develop players. While things don't look great right now, it's still not too late to change things. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.